Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Unmatched Marvel video. So this is a kind of a comparison of sorts to the five big box sets for Unmatched. Brains vs. Brawn, King Spirit, 14 Country, Redemption Hero, and Hell's Kitchen. So each one has 3 characters, so that's 15 different characters you can play as. The only character we're not going to discuss or mention in here doing anything is with Deadpool, who is a single solo pack. And I'm not going to bring him up or talk about him in this or compare him for 2 reasons. One, because I don't own him, so I don't like to talk about stuff that's I don't own, so I don't have it physically in front of me to show off and stuff like that. And then, generally. And then 2 is because I looked him up online. He's not available, like, through Amazon or anything easy. And eBay, he's selling for, like, $400 or $500. So, I don't want to get people hyped about this cool character if they might like him and then find out they can't afford to buy him. I'm not going to sit there and say all of these sets here are readily available or easy to find either, but most of them are still available or at least at reasonable prices. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to compare 3 different things. We're going to, go through all the different characters. I'm going to give just a brief overview or insight to what each one kind of does. It's not exactly or the only thing they can do. It's just a general idea of what their gimmick or mechanics of their game are. The second thing I want to do is compare all the different maps for each box. Kind of just see what the difference is. Are all the maps kind of the same? Are they vastly different? I've looked through each one as I've done the unboxings, but I haven't really laid them all out next to each other to kind of just see, like, is there a reason to try and get them for more of the maps, or does that not really make a difference? And then the third thing I wanted to do is because the Marvel set introduced battle items, which you can add little items that have each set comes with 6 of them, little tokens that have 3 for versatile, so they're attack or defense boosts, and the other 3 are schemes, which add extra different effects. I think most of the versatile are pretty much the same, but the other ones are going to add some additional effects, and be kind of interesting to see how different each one is. Again, so if it's worth being like, oh, should I try and pick some of these up, even if I don't necessarily want these characters, maybe if you're not a huge Marvel fan, you might want to pick them up because maybe the tokens might be cool. Maybe the maps might be worth adding in just your other games as well. And just to have other characters for other people in your gaming groups to play as. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and hop through all of these characters. Let's set that up. Alright, we're going to start by looking at the 3 heroes. Because Bullseye's not really a hero. From Hell's Kitchen, so we have Daredevil, Elektra, and Bullseye. So we'll take a look at those 3. So yeah, each character is going to have their own type of little gimmick and or like thing they kind of want to do. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, it's not a hard steadfast. Like, you have to play them exactly like this. But that's kind of what they want to do. So Daredevil here, if we look at his, he has some good movement here. It says during combat, he has special blind boost abilities. So if you have 2 or fewer cards in your hand, you may blind boost your attack or defense. So he gets a bunch of extra bonuses from being able to just randomly draw extra cards all the time, but you don't know how well that's going to happen. So he kind of wants to focus on getting to play these extra boosts and boosting up all his cards. He does have probably some more of the higher boosts, where most of his boost cards are 2, where a lot of characters have more 1s, or like an even amount. So yeah, he's gonna have some interesting stuff. He has some good movement as well in there, so he's gonna kind of be bouncing around. But yeah, having less cards in his hand, so if you're not spending time drawing extra cards and just kind of going on the offensive, if you have other during combat effects, choose your... Okay, yeah, so you can kind of boost up and keep hitting guys over and over. So yeah, very, very kind of more of a straightforward character. His arch nemesis would be Bullseye. There's Bullseye's miniature. So Bullseye is a ranged character. So we don't have too many ranged characters in the game often. But you can attack up to 5 spaces away, ignoring zones. Normally, you can only attack into your zones, so getting to move around position makes a big deal. But since he can attack from a long distance, that's his goal, is to just stay away from everybody and throw attacks at them, dealing damage that way. He's also got some abilities just for if he wins combats, he gets to do some extra stuff. Or like when he moves around, he gets to do things in after combat. So a lot of after combat or immediate effects. So yeah, his whole thing is just kind of, if you want a really big distance fighter, this is definitely an interesting character to take. Alright, we're not going to spend a ton of time on each character since we have a bunch to go through. Up next we have Elektra. Also Bullseye's nemesis, but Daredevil's off-and-on girlfriend. She kind of plays a mid-anti-hero in this set, because she's working with the Hand. So she actually gets hand minions. So this is kind of an interesting set to get. You have a melee character and a ranged character, but you also have another character that's going to have some minions around. She has 6 of those. She has extra little combatants that run around. They only have 1 hit point apiece, so they're not going to survive a lot of attacks, but the fact that they can also do additional attacks or something your opponents have to avoid can make the game trickier. Now, note she does only have 7 health, because she actually has a special ability here. This is when she's defeated, she removes all hand from the board. She's not defeated at the start of her hand, turn Resurrector, and then you get to ignore effects with the red symbol. So in the current, you ignore the ones with the red ones. Then after she dies, you get her second version, which is the resurrected version. Flip your health dial, shuffle your discard pile, place all extra hand back on the board with each fighter in a different zone, so you can resummon her and all the hand members back in. And then now you have to re-perform her attacks. So she has some things like the first time you're playing with her, this just is a 3 defense. But when she's resurrected, she gets additional effects on some of her cards. Some good, some bad. Like Whirlwind goes from being a 2 versatile to dealing 1 damage to each opposing fighter. Or something like this, which choosing an opponent looks at their hand gain action, and then you can choose to discard. So after she's taken so much damage, she becomes even deadlier, which is a very interesting mechanic. Like, normally you don't want to get close to death, because obviously that means you're probably going to die. But the fact that she gets some interesting bonuses from it is pretty cool. Alright, so up next, we have Redemption Row, which is kind of our in the dark, in the shadow type characters, or trying to make a comeback. We have Luke Cage, Ghost Rider, and Moon Knight. So we got good old Moon Knight here, who has one of the more interesting deck styles. So here's his big old miniature, his cape. So he is actually 3 different personalities. So at the start of the game, you start out as Moon Knight, which has 3 move, has start of your turn, move up to 2 spaces, end of your next turn, change to your next identity, Khonshu. So when you're Moon Knight, you get an extra movement around the board. And then you flip over to Khonshu, as +2 to the value of his attack cards. He does not take damage from effects other than combat damage. A little bit extra move in there. You go from, or say, it's still 3 move, same move, but he has extra damage on all his attacks. So you get 1 character that moves quicker, gets you around the board. You have 1 that does extra damage, and at the end of your turn, you flip to Mr. Knight, who has +1 for all his defense, and then you switch back around. You keep rotating through these 3 over and over. So you gotta kind of have a strategic place during your turn on, if I need to attack, I probably want to try and see if I can get Khonshu out and be close on that turn. If I need to move, I'll have Moon Knight out. But the deck works with all of them. All their cards say any on them, so every card works with any personality. There's nothing specific to a certain one. But yeah, it just kind of adds a little interesting chaotic game, because you kind of play around how you're moving and doing stuff depending on what bonus you want at the time. But we do have cards like I'm Not Real. It's means after combat, it may change your identity. So you could move with Moon Knight and then be Khonshu and do that, or you could be Khonshu, do your extra attack, and then switch to then switch over for defense, but then at the end of your turn, you switch over. So you could kind of play around with some of that stuff. You get some different options there. But yeah, that's kind of what his entire gimmick is going to be about, is, yeah, just kind of playing around with these different things, and I'm going to be positioned in the right spot, in the right order to be able to do stuff. It's very, very interesting. Alright, up next, we have Luke Cage and Misty Knight. I honestly wish Luke Cage would have came with, Iron Fist, Danny Rand. That would have been more interesting, but then again, maybe that would have been too powerful, unless they would have been, like, full characters. But here's Luke Cage's miniature. The Power Man. Then Misty Knight's a little token, so he gets a sidekick to come help him out. So we kind of look at that. We have another melee fighting, but she's ranged. Just because as an interesting thing in there as well, because now you have a melee character getting to run around and do damage to you. Plus, you have a ranged ally helping you out from the distance. So if they're trying to run away from Luke Cage, Misty Knight can kind of come from the side or from behind, maybe do some extra damage, or vice versa. She might push them away from, try to get out of her range, might move into Luke Cage's range. It's just gonna work a little bit different. And unlike Elektra with her hand, who only had 1 HP, she has 6, so she can actually take some damage. So that's very interesting there. So Luke Cage takes 2 less combat damage from attacks. So he has Sting like Steel, so he takes less damage. And when defending, Luke Cage wins combat, he takes no damage, even if he didn't play a card. If he doesn't, when defending, Luke Cage wins combat if he takes no damage. So if there are anything that does damage to him and he doesn't take it, and he has an automatic 2 defense, your opponent has to do at least 3 damage to him. Otherwise, he automatically wins the combat. So then there's any cards that say, hey, when you win the combat, you get extra effects. Now there's gonna have some cards that are just for Misty Knight, some that are for Eddie, obviously. But he's gonna have a lot of stuff like this that's gonna say, after the combat, if you won the combat, end the turn. So this can definitely just shut down your opponent's turn. Or as after combat, drop to 1 card. If you won the combat, draw 2 cards instead. So he's going to gain bonuses for having that defense in there. Plus, he has some good power attacks like Sweet Christmas. So he's going to also be able to do some good damage as well. So that's his whole entire thing. He's not going to take a lot of damage. Or very easily, and then if he does win those combats, he's going to be able to come back at you with some good effects. Plus, he has Misty Knight helping him out. Alright, our third character for this box set is Ghost Rider. So I believe this is the... I don't know which version. It looks like, per the motorcycle, the more modern one, this should be Danny Tech. But I think they listed as Johnny Blaze in some of the stuff. But Johnny Blaze doesn't usually have the big faceplate on his motorcycle. But yeah, Ghost Rider is a big model, first of all, a little bit bigger than some of the other ones. He's again a melee character, but he has a couple of different things he's going to do. So he starts the game with 5 Hellfire. So you're going to get these little tiny Hellfire tokens that make a little design. You can put them all together, make a little 5-prong thing. When you maneuver, you may spend 1 Hellfire. If you do increase Ghost Rider's move value to 4, he may move through opposing fighters and then deal 1 damage to each fighter he moved through. So you can spend this Hellfire with his basic ability to get extra movement. He's riding his motorcycle through the town or whatever, across the map, and he can do extra damage. That's pretty cool there. But he's also going to have other stuff that's going to let him gain Hellfire and spend it. So he can have like Blaze of Glory, spend any amount of Hellfire, deal that much damage to each fighter in his zone, including himself. Such areas of Blaze. He has different ways of gaining it by doing different things. Oh yeah, something like the Penance Stare. Add the boost value of the opposing fighter's card to this card value if you may spend 2 Hellfire to do it a second time. So you can spend this Hellfire as basically just an additional resource to either get some extra movement, might do some damage if you run a guy over, or especially like when they have 1 damage to each fighter he moves through. So if he runs through Luke Cage and Misty Knight, does 1 to each of them. If he runs through Elektra and 3 Hand Ninja, he takes out all 3 Hand Ninja because they only have 1 health each. So it's kind of like could be really good against guys that have a bunch of little tiny minions that are 1 health. But it's still not even bad just a 1-on-1. He does have like change of Hellfire, set of Hellfire to 5. So there's definitely reasons to keep spending it. Or like this one, I finally escaped hell. You may spend 1 Hellfire to move up to 2 spaces. So he just kind of gets an interesting extra resource that you have to play certain cards to gain, because he doesn't just automatically gain it, but you can use that to, increase his movement, do extra effects and stuff like that. It's just kind of a neat idea. Alright, our third box we are on to is for King and Country. Here we are going to get Black Widow, Black Panther, and Winter Soldier. So like a Wakandian and a Russian and a kind of American Russian, because Winter Soldier's been brainwashed to run with Russia as Winter Soldier. So Black Panther also has Shuri with him, so you could say a little ally. And Black Panther has an interesting mechanic. So he has his vibranium suit. So he's a melee and she's a ranged. Shuri's a ranged. It's kind of like Misty Knight and Luke Cage. We get another combo there. But it says whenever you boost, draw a card. And then whenever cards starting your vibranium suit can only be used to boost. So he has... he wants to boost all the time. He wants to basically use extra power to just increase all his attacks all the time. Then he has a special card called Vibranium Suit. It says when an effect lets you store cards in your Vibranium Suit, place it here so the boost value is showing. So he can basically store cards on here and then expend them as boost without having to spend cards from his hand, which is actually a really cool effect. What makes it even more interesting or more deadly, I guess, is this card says stuff like analyze and adjust. Reveal the top card of your opponent's deck and store it on your Vibranium Suit. So you're not storing your stuff, you're storing your opponent's cards. I'm trying to find another one here that says that. Like Shuri has one. Choose an opponent, reveal the top 2 cards of their deck, and store them in your Vibranium Suit. So you're basically stealing your opponent's cards, which limits their deck options, and using it to increase your own. Whenever you boost with yours, ups your attack, you do more damage, which is always good. But then you also have, you're limiting their deck. Then you can also put them cards back in their deck. So you can opt to not increase your attack and just limit what cards they have as well. And then has stuff like Vibranium Shockwave. During combat, you may boost this card. So there's a lot of extra stuff that lets you do things like that. Wakanda Forever. You may boost this card up to 2 times. You draw a card for Black Panther's special ability each time you boost. Yeah, so not only are you spending your opponent's cards to boost and trying to up your attacks all the time, or your defense, however you're boosting, you also get to draw more cards so you have more resources. So you're limiting your opponents while you're increasing your own, which is a pretty mean combo. Alright, up next we have the Winter Soldier. Bucky Barnes. So this is more Winter Soldier, brainwashed assassin, as opposed to the hero Winter Soldier that's running around trying to help everybody out, working with Captain America. There's his miniature there. And if you played Marvel Rivals, again! So I had to say that. So here's his thing. He has Brainwash. He's a ranged character. Obviously, there's a gun. He's going to go around and shoot people. It says, effects on Winter Soldier's cards cannot be canceled. So he gets this interesting, unique effect is that nobody can cancel or stop any of his effects. There's a lot of cards that'll say cancel your opponent's effect, or if you win this combat, they don't get to do any of their after combat effects, stuff like that. And he's just like, nope, no matter what, he gets to do all his effects. Now, the downside to it is a lot of his cards have the little, like kind of like bluish text with a star on it. It says, it's just a 6 damage, which is crazy, but they have basically bad effects after them. So it says, after combat, your opponent may draw a card. So he gets some pretty decent cards to use, or very interesting effects on his cards, but they have drawbacks to them. So like Bionic Arm only does 2 damage, but says during combat, if Winter Soldier is adjacent to the opposing fighter, the value of this card is 6 instead. So if you get right next to him, instead of being a ranged fighter, you can punch them for 6, which is again pretty crazy. But after combat, your opponent and each of their fighters move up to 5 spaces away. So now you have to try and hunt them back down, which isn't even too bad for him. Now, not all of his cards have that. Some let him recover some health if he wins combat and do some other stuff there. But you have something like manipulation. Drawing, you have 5 cards in your hand, which is great for you, but each opponent may draw until they have 5 cards in their hand. So you're helping out everybody else by doing that. You have one where you do 4 damage, but you take 2 damage if you won combat. Now, he does have one couple of cards, and he has 2 copies of a boy named Bucky to ignore them for a turn and gain an action. So that's the only way you can cancel his stuff. So you can't cancel his bad things, but usually he's pretty effective. Has some pretty good damage dealing stuff, and that's kind of the way his deck is supposed to work. Is you're trying to do some powerful attacks or get some really good effects, but you're going to have to suffer some consequences for it. So very, very interesting. Alright, our last one for this box is the Black Widow. Which, interestingly enough, the Black Widow also comes with Maria Hill as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. So yeah, I wouldn't have expected her to have it, but the idea of her deck is based around she's getting sent on missions from S.H.I.E.L.D. as opposed to her being the Russian Red Room assassin, the Black Widow. So yeah, we get 2 ranged characters. So this is also an interesting box because that means we have 2 ranged characters versus a melee and a ranged character. We've had some sets where they're full melee. We've had some where they're a little mixed in between. This is almost, except for just Black Panther, this is almost a primarily heavy range set. So if you kind of want some characters that have more range, this is not a bad box to grab. So it says mission ready. Before drawing your mission, your starting hand, add the Moscow Protocol card to your hand, then shuffle your deck. Your starting hand is 5 instead of 6. So what she gets are these special mission cards. When you acquire new missions, reveal cards from the top of your deck one at a time to reveal a new mission. Add that mission card to your hand, and then shuffle the other cards revealed back into your deck. If you do not have any missions left, you do not acquire new missions. She gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different mission cards in the game. And basically, they're pretty interesting, good effect cards, but you did have to be in certain situations to use them. So like her starting one. Mission, if Black Widow is in an opponent's starting space, if she gets back to their starting space, you deal 2 damage to each opponent's fighter. So she doesn't even have to attack them. This is her doing something completely out of just trying to focus on attacking the other player to get different things. Oh, sorry, that's not even the starting. That's the Madaport sanction. This is the starting one. The Moscow Protocol says start the game with this card. An opposing fighter took damage this turn. Now, it doesn't care why they took damage. It can be you hit them, Black Widow hit them, Maria Hill hit them. It could be someone like Winter Soldier played a card that did damage to himself. It just matters that he took damage. You draw a card and gain an action. So they're kind of neat because they're kind of like almost quick play cards that you get extra bonuses for doing something outside of just saying, hey, I played this card or I did this extra action. Yeah, they're very neat. So if you have 2 or fewer cards in your hand, you draw 5 cards. Each opponent discards a card. We have Black Widow is adjacent to the opposing hero, deal 2 damage to each opposing hero or each opposing fighter in their zone. Or the last one is if is in your starting space. Choose an opponent to discard 2 cards, acquiring a mission. It's very interesting. She kind of has these things that kind of like work around that. Then some of the other stuff she has is because she has lots of any cards. She says, "Spake up, you lost the combat, you can gain action." Because she teams up with Maria Hill just to do stuff. Move your fighters up to 3 space. So she has lots of stuff where she teams up with Maria Hill, where they get to kind of use the spy world and the spy network to play around with different stuff. Like this is pretty fun. If Maria Hill is defeated, place her adjacent to Black Widow. If you do, set her health back to 3, so she gets to come back. Like Widow's Kiss is stopping players from leaving their spaces. Or she gets to move up to 3 spaces. So lots of stuff where you kind of get to manipulate around the field. But then her whole thing is, just being in different areas, doing different stuff. I think she's kind of one of the more straightforward characters of the game. Where, she has that little gimmick, but it's not like... It's not really taking away from what else she's trying to do in the game. Alright, then let's hop into the next set. Ooh, I just threw Maria Hill on the floor. There she is. Alright, so then we have... Oh, I grabbed these boxes in the wrong order. Sorry for the delay here. We have Teen Spirit. So here we've had a bunch of all, like, adult superheroes and vigilantes and guys in the dark. We have some more little brighter characters. We have Squirrel Girl, Cloak and Dagger, and Miss Marvel. So, alright, we're going to start with Squirrel Girl. So, Squirrel Girl and her squirrels. So, she's going to have a bunch of little minis. So, we've had Shuri, we've had Misty Knight, and we've had Maria Hill as, like, full-on allies. And then Elektra had a couple of hangings. She had 6 of them that could run around. Squirrel Girl gets 8 squirrels. So, she gets 8 little squirrels, but they're little tiny ones. And they have a special rule. For little tiny guys, the small figurines that can occupy, any number of them can occupy a space. They can occupy the space as other fighters. Everyone can move over them. Normally, you can't move through other characters. So basically, they're just kind of ignored for that. But they also have the distinction of if you attack and you defeat one small figure, you defeat all of them. So if there's 4 squirrels on a tile, and you defeat one of them, you defeat all of them. So you don't have to deal 4 damage, you only have to deal 1 to take them out. But they're both melee characters. So at the start of your turn, summon a squirrel in a space adjacent to Squirrel Girl. Our small fighters do not start with any squirrels on the board. So every turn she has to keep resummoning these. So if you want to get rid of them, you have to spend extra attacks to take them out. So it's going to kind of be a play between her and the opponent, kind of like a, yin-yang, up and down thing of what's the best thing to do. Because she has a lot of cards in here that gain her bonuses if she has multiple squirrels in an area, such as Call of the Mild. There are 4 or more squirrels in your fighter zone. The value of this card is 4 instead. So she gains bonuses for stacking up squirrels. But then, of course, the issue is always, the more you stack up together, then your opponent can also take them out. Horde of Squirrels. Choose a space with 4 or more squirrels. Deal 2 damage to a fighter in that space. So they don't generally just do damage. They don't get a regular attack like everybody else. So all her cards, she has a couple of any, but most of her cards are Squirrel Girl cards. So she's not like the other characters where, like, you have Misty Knight out in Luke Cage. You have cards that either character can choose to use. The squirrels don't generally have attacks. Unless she's a card like that other one we just showed, where they can attack if you have 4 of them stacked up. So you gotta try and do is maneuver your squirrels around using other cards, getting them onto your opponent. Get them onto your opponent's space. And then, once they're on your opponent's space, your opponent has to decide, like, oh, do they have a card in their hand that's going to do extra damage to me? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? Or do I need to spend an attack on it? Well, you only have two actions per turn. So you spend 1 getting rid of their scrolls and wasting a card. What if you only have a attack card in your hand that does 5 damage, right? Do you waste that 5 damage, or do you hope that your opponent doesn't have anything that's going to do it? Because not everyone with Squirrel Girl's cards does damage. Or does stuff that have stuff to do with a squirrel. But you got something like this one. It says, if there are 4 more squirrels adjacent to the opposing player, cancel all the card's effects. So your opponent could attack you, and you could use this to then turn around and stop that attack, and they wasted your attack. Now they have to spend another one. And then the scrolls do have this. They have a couple copies. During combat, 4 or more scrolls on opposing players is equal 5 instead. So you can just have them being 2 damage, but if you stack them up, they'll do 5. But again, it's that risk and reward, because the more you have them stacked up, then the more they can take out. There's really no reason to ever stack up more than 4 at a time, though. So, a very interesting deck style to play as. Alright, let's look at our next character. We have Miss Marvel. So, we've had ranged characters. We've had melee characters. We have Miss Marvel, who is both. So she's very interesting. She has her stretchy, growy powers. So she gets melee character with stretchy. At the start of your turn, you may move Miss Marvel 1 space. She gets additional movement. Plus, she can attack up to 2 spaces away, ignoring zones. So, like, Bullseye can attack up to 5 spaces. So he's definitely super long range. But she can attack up to 2 extra zones into other zones as well. So it does give her some good range. She wants to be melee, so she's still hitting with melee attacks. So she can hit right up next to the guy if she wants. But the fact that she can reach in and hit around to other areas makes her pretty versatile for getting close to guys that might be trying to stay just outside your reach. That means they have to now move 3 or more spaces away to do stuff. So you might put them outside of the zone, which means now they can't attack you. So she has some interesting stuff there. Then her other little kind of gimmick in the game is she has cards like this that say, if Miss Marvel's space shares no zones with the opposing fighter, you may boost this card. So she's attacking outside of her zone, which you can move and then attack 2 spaces into another zone, depending on how big the zone is. You get boost the card, so she gains bonuses for not being in the same zone as the other ones. She also has some that are like embiggen. During combat, if Miss Marvel is in more zones than the opposing fighter, this value has 6 instead. So if you can get on them double or triple zone spaces, she can do a lot more damage. And since she can attack into other zones, and then at that point, it doesn't matter if they're in your zone or not, but hopefully they're on a spot that only has 1 or 2 spots and you can, maneuver around. But that's kind of interesting. So placement on the board makes an issue, because normally any other thing, it doesn't really matter. Like if you're melee, you have to be in the same zone as them, next to them. You have to be next to them no matter what. For range, you have to be in the same zone, except for like Bullseye. So for her, she actually gets the ability, like, where she is on the board, like specifically what locations make a big difference. So different maps might be better or worse for her. If she has a map that has a lot of like 3 zones or 2 zones in it versus a lot of just singular zones, she's going to have an easier time doing some of these effects. So very interesting. And then she has some 4th wall breaking commentary. The last one for this set is Cloak and Dagger, which are, again, and I love this, we're 12 characters in, and we're still having very unique effects and mechanics. So Cloak and Dagger are actually 2 heroes. So, we've seen, like, we've had the minions and stuff with them, which are definitely the same kind of idea, but since these are 2 fully fledged heroes, they have a little bit more health than them. And they count as a full hero as well. So you have to defeat both of them to win the game. Now, that's the thing, is if I'm playing Luke Cage and Misty Knight, I take out Luke Cage, I've won the game. I don't have to worry about taking out Misty Knight. Same thing as Shuri or Maria Hill, or any of the other characters. But on the other hand, here, you have to take out Cloak and you have to take out Dagger. So each one only has 8, but it's a total of 16. And then they have some interesting effects. I kind of wish they were kind of like 2 separate cards. Kind of like, Moon Knight was. It'd be kind of interesting to have 2 full separate seats. Just because one could have been melee, one could have been ranged, that would have been neat, but it's what it is. So it says Umbra is after you attack with, if Cloak dealt at least 2 combat damage, your opponent discards a card. So if you attack with Cloak, you can potentially force your opponent to lose advantage. Or Refraction, after you attack, if Dagger dealt at least 2 damage, gain an action. So it's kind of cool there is if Dagger attacks and you did 2 damage, you gain an action. Now you can even turn around and use that to have Cloak attack again. So this is a very cool idea. You can actually have these guys kind of working in tandem with each other, attacking back and forth. Most of their cards are going to be any's, so either one of them use it, but they each do have a special card specific to themselves. Dagger does 7 damage, cannot be canceled with Light Force Barrage, which is if you won the combat, move that down, your fighter takes damage equal to the amount of damage you dealt. So yeah, if she's at full health, she can hit with this just once, do 7 damage, but she's going to be just about defeated for it. But it's still interesting, and again, that's depending on how much they block. They have stuff like Living Shadow with Dagger play discard. She swaps space with Cloak. Cloak is now a defender, so you can actually swap your damage around. So she could play Light Force Brigade, then defend with this. They get bonuses for being next to each other if they're adjacent. The value of this card is 6 instead. So that kind of sticking near each other definitely helps them out. Plus some cards like if Cloak played this to defend, Dagger recovers 2 health. If Dagger played this card to attack, Cloak recovers 2 health. So just kind of playing, again, they need to work together, which also is the weakness of their deck. If one of them is defeated, a bunch of these cards don't do as much effects as they probably could have. Cloak's signature card is the Dark Force Dimension. Place your opposing fighter in any space, your opponent discards a card. So again, forcing them to discard. And you can do stuff like, you can also teleport people. Choose one of the fighters in combat and move them up to 3 spaces. Yourself or another character. So yeah, they're kind of going to be manipulating, moving around the board, but they kind of want to work as a team to like bounce off of each other, healing each other, doing damage, taking damage for each other. You kind of want to bounce your health out. They have cards where I think one is, I didn't grab it, but it was if you can damage one character to heal the other one. So they're kind of sharing a life total in general that way too. Which is a really interesting idea. Alright, then we're going to hop into the last set we have here, which is Brains and Brawn with She-Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man. So for She-Hulk, we'll start with her. Jennifer Walters is going to be playing on the legally side of her character. So there's her big giant She-Hulk wielding a column. So she actually has the most health out of any character. She starts with 20 health. And she has a very interesting ability. Just throw something. At the start of your turn, you may discard a card to deal damage equal to its boost value to a fighter in your zone. So she has a way of just straight up dealing damage at the start of your turn by sacrificing your resources, your cards. But yeah, it can definitely be super helpful. Might only do like 1 or 2 damage. But hey, doing 1 or 2 damage consistently is not even a bad thing. It's a punish your opponent for being next to you, and then you can maybe attack them as well. And again, it only has to be in their zone, so it's like a mid-ranged ability, because it doesn't have to be right next to them. But her other big thing she's going to have is stuff where she's kind of like sacrificing some of her stuff or taking just taking damage instead. Or playing stuff in interesting ideas. I'm trying to find some here. She can do stuff like Nerve Cluster Strike, stopping your opponent from moving away from you, which is super helpful. But like this. She normally does 3 damage to Savage Shield. During combat, you may spend an additional action to make this card value 9 instead. 9 is an incredible amount of damage to do. That could take out Cloak or Dagger. in one shot, but it costs you an additional action. She can spend cards, which are your resources you need to use. She can spend her extra actions to do stuff. She gets some of that stuff. Like Omega level threat does 5. She does some decent damage. If you dealt 2 or more combat damage, your opponent discards 2 random cards. Because like move up to 4 spaces, you may move through opposing fighters, so adjacent to 1, gain an action. So you get, yeah, interesting stuff. So her big thing, is kind of, I just sort of like, she has 20 health. She just wants to get next to you and punch you. She doesn't care if you hurt her. She's just gonna take that damage, and not worry about it. During combat, discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Increase the value of this card by twice that boost value. So it normally does 0, but it could potentially do up to 6. Or she has defense rest. After combat, draw cards equal to the combat damage you took. Yeah, go ahead and take some hits. You can afford it. You have 20 health. She has a little 1 versatile card here. Cancel all effects on your opponent's card. If you're attacking, this is 4 instead. So if you're attacking, you can up it, but it's, a weak defense, but it just blocks everything. So yeah, she's kind of just like, I'm going to come in and powerhouse you, and I'm going to throw these cards at you, spend my resources just doing stuff. Again, very straightforward character, but she has 20 health, so you're definitely going to be able to take some lumps. Versus some of the other characters. Again, not a huge difference. I mean, lots of other characters have 16 or 17. That could easily be like 1 attack. So it's not like an enormous amount, but it is still something. Alright, then we have Doctor Strange with Wong. Doctor Strange has very interesting, deck ability in here. We'll look at that in just a sec. There's Doctor Strange's Wong token. So again, like anytime you have an ally, they're going to have lots of any cards in here, so either character can use them. He has 14 health, but Wong has 6. They're both ranged. You can kind of see him fighting She-Hulk. He's going to just kind of stay away from She-Hulk. But he has Dark Pact. After each combat, if Doctor Strange played a card, you may deal 1 damage to him. If you do, put that card in the bottom of your deck and draw a card. So you can take extra damage to retain cards you really want to keep. And this can be very helpful because if it's a card like, oh, this card had really good defense or really good damage or whatever it is, you need it for that special ability. Maybe it tossed your opponent across the board and you're like, I need that back in my hand in case they get close to me again. Put it back on the bottom of your deck. You're going to draw it a lot quicker than waiting for your deck to recycle. Plus, you also get to draw an additional card, so you're refreshing your hand anyhow. The only thing you have to watch out, if you do it too often, you're just going to lower your health too much and take too much damage. But hopefully, you can maybe use Wong to help take and absorb some of that damage. As Wong will have some fun stuff like the adjacent to opposing fighter, deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter and draw a card. So if he gets next to them, he can do some damage instead of just being ranged. Or if they're in the same adjacent to each other, this card's value 4, so keeping them kind of near each other to help, again, protect each other. But he also has Blind Boost, which we've seen with Daredevil. So during combat, you may Blind Boost this card. Go to the top card of your deck, so it is. After combat, if you win the combat, gain an action. So that's kind of the other way his Dark Pact is kind of interesting, because if you're blind boosting stuff, you are basically sacrificing your cards. You don't get to see what they are, and you're just sacrificing them. So that way, if you find a card you really need, you might want to spend that 1 health to keep it. This is a fun one as well. The 7 Sons of Sinibus. It does 3 versatile. If the value goes above 7, ignore the value. During combat, you may blind boost this card up to 2 times. So yeah, you could definitely, if you get a 3, you're fine. So you're at 6, but then you have to stop unless you want to hope for a 1. But that might be risky. But yeah, plus again, blind boosting gets rid of those cards. But you might blind boost 1 or 2 times, then pay 1 Dark Pact to keep that card in your hand, or put it back in your deck, so you have that available a little bit quicker. And that's he has just a bunch of different spells that do a bunch of different effects. Like do one combat, each recover health equal to the damage dealt, so that can just help you recover some of your dark pack stuff. The Wings of a Tomb lets you return characters to starting spaces. You know, Eye of Agamotto, you just shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 5 cards, so you might get some of them dark pack cards back quicker. So yeah, very interesting. And then he has his last one here I'm going to look at. No Realm of Doctor. If you have cards from your hand, put it on top of your deck. If Doctor Strange or a friendly adjacent figure recovers health equal to that boost value. And then if you do a dark pack, to put this back on the bottom, you can redraw that card you just put back on there even. So you could boost for a 3, put it on top of your deck, pay 1 life point, you just gained 3 lives, now you got, you went down 1, now you're back, so still netting 2 extra life out of it. So yeah, very interesting deck. So he's kind of wants to play around with keeping his cards while sacrificing cards. But yeah, it could be an interesting gameplay style. Alright, our last character is good old Spider-Man. So Spider-Man is kind of a little bit more of a straightforward character as well. There's his miniature web slinging to the day. So he has one of the more unique abilities here. He has another melee character. He has Spider Sense. When an opponent attacks Spider-Man before playing a defense card, they must hide the printed value of their card. So he always knows what he's playing against. So he's not trying to guess. Do I need to block this? Do I pay extra? Do I hope to do this? Do I even need to block it? Maybe it's like 1 damage. I can take 1 damage. Maybe it's 6 damage. Oh crap, I better definitely defense up myself. So yeah, he gets this kind of extra advantage of that. And that's really all he has for his thing. His rest of his stuff is all about just kind of getting a move around the board and doing damage. He's one of the few characters that has 3 movement to start with. I think Daredevil has it, and I think that was maybe it. Might have been one other character. But yeah, he'll have stuff like, if the counterattack, the value of your opponent's card is 4 or higher, deal 2 damage to the opposing fighter. So if you know they have a 4 or higher, you can play that card since you already know that's what it's going to be. He has like his web shooters. During combat, Spider-Man not take more than 2 damage as combat. So you kind of get to pick and choose what defense cards you want to use. He has a lot of versatile cards. He has attack and defense. Opponent can't draw cards this turn. Snark, if Spider-Man is adjacent to the opposing fighter, draw a card. So a lot of his cards are versatile, but he does get some really good attacks in there. Swing and kick, move the opponent fighter, number of damage equal to the combat dealt. But yeah, it lets him kind of be like wherever what do you need him to do? He's probably like your average fighter, which is what kind of expect with Spider-Man. He's like right in the middle. He's not like super strong, but he doesn't have any super crazy gimmicks he's trying to do. It's just, I know it's coming at me, so I have an idea of how to defend. Makes it a little bit easier for me. I have my option a lot of versatile, so I can attack or defend. And then he has lots of movements. Like after combat, play Spider-Man any space in his zone, lets you get around a little bit quicker. And then of course, great power. All his attacks are +1 value, draw a card, and gain an action. So yeah, he has just kind of wants to move around the board, dodging when he needs to. He can back away and like refill his hand, refresh himself, and then he can also turn around and smack the other players and do stuff that way. So very cool. Alright, so the next thing we're going to look at, before we look at the maps, we're going to look at the tokens quick, because I think they'll go pretty quick. So we have these battle tokens, so we're going to look at the ones for House Kitchen first. So we have 2 different types. We have the ones that have versatile on them. So these are +1s and +2s on them. And just as a reminder for how these work for anybody, if you have a combat item, so it says, Beginning each game, randomly generate, place one item token in each designated space on the board. Effects aren't secret. Feel free to place them face up or face down. If you have Battlefield in front of the section, you can randomly choose all of them. That's why we're looking at them all. Or the Steam says you can use Steam items while one of your fighters is on a space with that token. Resolve the effect of the token. Return it to the box. Using a Steam item counts as one of your actions, but does not count as you playing a Steam card for other effects. So basically, you can use one of your cards or use this as a pseudo card in your hand. You may use combat items when one of your fighters plays a combat, attack, defense, or versatile while on a space with a combat item. When you play your combat card, take the token and place it next to your card. If you are attacking, choose whether to use the token before your opponent decides they are playing the defense card. The card you play gains the following effect. During combat, the value of this card is increased by the value of the token. If your card has during combat effect, choose the order to resolve the card in the token. Token effect may be canceled. The card effect after combat return to the box. So basically, if you're on one of those spots, you can use this to boost up your attack or defense. So it kind of like to a sense like Miss Marvel, it kind of helps you like want to work on your placement on the board. Now, so far as I know, only the Marvel sets have these tokens. The other sets don't. But now, could you use these in other sets? Sure, just place them on whatever random spots you like to place them on. Could you add more to the game? You'll add, instead of only the 6 of them, could you add all whatever we have of them? 5 to 30 of them? Could you add like one to like every spot and have everything filled? You sure could. It would cause the game to be real chaos, but you could definitely do it. Yes, very interesting. Could you change the rules up and let you pick that item up and then use that as a later idea? If you want to play that way, that's your call. So basically on the back of all the versatile, it's just going to say +1 or +2 plus the name of it. So I believe all 3 sets have roughly the same thing for that. It's usually either 2 1s and a 2 or a 2 2s and a 1 like we have here. So this one has a couple more 2s in it. The more interesting ones are the Steam ones. So I'm just going to look at the back sides of them. We have a payphone at the top. Choose a card in your discard pile, return it to your hand. Map, your next attack can target any space, or first aid kit, recover 2 health and draw a card. So that's pretty cool, right? We have just different options that your characters might not have. A lot of characters, like having anything with just an extra thing to heal, plus the fact that you can see it on the board. They're not covered up, so you're not randomly selecting which one it is. It's not sitting in your hand hidden, so your opponent doesn't know like that you're gonna pop this out at some point, or spend one of your tokens. Plus, your next attack can target any target. Imagine hitting with like a Winter Soldier or a She-Hulk, like 6 or a 9 cost card anywhere on the board, right? That could be pretty crazy. So that was Hell's Kitchen, the Daredevil set. We're going to look at Redemption Row. We have our +1 food tray, our +1 folding chair, and a +2 electric baton. So that one has a little bit less for those. But we'll gain a security camera, a secret document, and an electrified floor. So 4 does 1 damage to each fighter in your zone. Secret documents, discard your hand, draw 3 cards, and security camera, look at your opponent's hand and draw a card. So this one doesn't give you any healing bonuses. Does some extra damage. Discarding your hand to draw 3 cards is kind of cool. Look at your opponent's hands, not always a bad idea, especially if you're trying to determine whether they have a defense or playing against Squirrel Girl, you're like, oh, do they have a Squirrel Girl or a card that affects the squirrels? Or if they have an ally like Maria Hill or Shuri, do they have a card in there that says Maria Hill or Shuri? Or do they only have Black Widow or Black Panther cards? Oh, they don't have a card they can even attack me with that character. I can ignore them for a turn. So it could be very interesting. Alright, let's look at our next one. We have 14 Country, which is the Black Widow Black Winter Soldier, Black Panther set. So we have a shield issue blaster for 2, industrial wrench for 2, and reinforced gloves for 1. For our Steam ones, we have rocket pack, EMP pulse array, and laser current. So the EMP Pulse Ray, all players discard 2 cards. Rocket Back, place your fighter in any space. And Laser Turret, deal 2 damage to a fighter in your zone. It's very interesting. So a couple of negative ones, a couple of movement ones, which are pretty interesting. I don't know if you could have really made the combat ones too much different. But they're what they are. For the Team Spirit, we have a parking meter, a garbage can lid, and a snow globe, so a 1, 1, and 2. For our schemes, we have Helium Balloons, Zazoom, and Exo Slushy. Exo Slushy lets you recover 3. We have previous one lets you recover 2 but draw a card, so which one do you think is better? Helium Balloons move up to 2 spaces, gaining action. Again, is moving anywhere better or worse than moving 2 spaces but you gaining action? Because gaining action can let you attack, but you can't necessarily always get away. And then Zazoom with the top 3 cards of any deck, put them back in any order. So we had the thing where you could look at an opponent's hand. This lets you look at a deck instead, kind of see what's coming up next, and you can rearrange it. Fix your deck so you get a card you really need next. Rearrange your opponent's deck so it messes up maybe something they played. What if, like, Doctor Strange put a card back on top of his deck and then you rearranged it before you could draw it? That'd be kind of funny. Alright, then our last one is Brains and Brawn. So we're going to get a Black's Law Dictionary for 1, Acts of Angry Angarumus for 1, and a Dragon Fang Sword for 2. Then for our schemes, we have the Brazier of Bromgalith, the Astral Ring, and the Daily Bugle. For the Daily Bugle, draw 3 cards, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. So again, we had draw card, draw 3 cards, discard cards. But yeah, this one you have to put it back on the bottom of your deck. So again, which is necessarily better or worse, I guess. Astral Ring, move up each fighter to 1 space. You've had move yourself anywhere. Or move all players, but yeah, just move everyone a little bit away. Or the Brazier of Bomb Galeth. Play a scheme from your deck as a free action. So that's pretty cool, because that's actually really a powerful one. Getting to play any scheme from your deck for free, that's pretty cool. Shows you the different actions you have. I think they're, again, the attack ones are all pretty much the same. It's either a +1 or +2. Some have more pluses on the 2s. So yeah, if you're mixing and matching them, you can set all those to be just +1. You can set all 3 of them to be +2s. Wouldn't be too hard to mix. I think the schemes would be a little bit more interesting to mix around. And arguably, I wouldn't say there's any reason why you couldn't. Again, if you really wanted to get crazy about it, so if we look at one of the boards here, we have like the scheme and we have the versatile icon. There's no reason why you couldn't, again, make your own rules by placing them in other different spots. Like, place 1 token in every single zone on the board, or place 2 in each zone, like 1 of each in each zone. Maybe let players take turns, like player A just to play, like player 1 places 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. So then you're kind of placing them like, however you want, so that way everyone's like, you just randomly grab a tile and that's what's going there. You could place just all of one type. There's lots of different stuff you could do. Alright, so the last thing we want to look at are the different boards, the maps. Alright, on to the boards. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to say, I haven't myself laid down multiple of these boards at the same time to see how different they all are. But it'd be just kind of interesting to see what some of the layouts are. So here we have Hell's Kitchen. And if you're not familiar with the Marvel boards, they're the same on both sides, just the one side doesn't have the colored dots, so I'm not going to have to keep flipping them back over. So the Hell's Kitchen set has Hell's Kitchen. We can kind of see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different areas to go to. But yeah, you kind of got like a little landlocking here where you can't get from here. You have to go around one side or the other. Kind of interesting there. The rooftop here is kind of its own little section by itself. Couple of spots. But we're noting for someone like Miss Marvel who wanted multiple things. There's a couple multiples here. 2 triples in the middle here. Also noticing that like where some of the things are placed makes a difference as well. I don't know if necessarily any board is necessarily more advantages or disadvantages versus some other board. But it's interesting. Like we have lots of connectivity up here, but then we have some like alleys, kind of like here, by itself. You can't really get to there. You get over here; these are all connected. This is kind of off by itself. So very interesting. Let's take a look at another one, just kind of see how it compares. So we're going to look at, for Redemption Row, we have the Raft, which is the jail. So again, we keep our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different colors in this one. There's a little bit more zones in there. This one's kind of neat too. Like, right, we have a kind of like a robot. We have a big central area in here. We can only go up and down from that one. But then, yeah, once you kind of get off to this, you kind of branch out the up and downs, but then you kind of got some, like, little blockway paths in here. But I don't think anything's too necessarily broke off from each other. You notice one thing in here. There are no triple spots on this board. So that's interesting. I assume that would have been a thing for all of them. You have a very split, kind of even color on this side. In the middle, you kind of have a split, like, between this is all one, and then you got a little bit here and there. And then this middle section is kind of split one half to the other half. So it's very, very symmetrical board. You know, dual, single. Not 100%, but, you know, you got very much there. So, yeah, if we kind of even, like, kind of compare these two together, I'm not going to be able to have all 5 of them out at the same time. But you can kind of see some differences in there as well. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 dual spots versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there, I don't know if there's less spaces or not. Looks like 32 on each. So, yeah, you can just see kind of some of the different placement is. So, the third one we have is for King and Country, which we will get the Helicarrier. I like the fact that they're kind of like general Marvel locations. I mean, other than Hell's Kitchen, but that's in the city. But, like, we didn't get, like, for King and Country, we didn't get, like, Wakanda. You know, it's just kind of interesting. I'm going to stack these back on top of each other so we have a little bit different. So we have a little bit thing there. Now, you see this one here, we have 3 triples right in the middle. So they're going to add a lot of different, you know, from here you can hit multiple different zones. But then also cool is over here, this kind of branches off by itself, so you can kind of run around this corner and hide. Same thing up here on this white deck. You can kind of hide up here a little bit. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different colors. So we have a little less number of areas. A little bit more congested versus some of these other ones, where this looks like it's very spread out. This one looks like it's very congested in there. Yeah, so very, very interesting how those are going to work. Then we have Teen Spirit. And this is the Navy Pier, I think in New Jersey. That's where Kamala Khan's from, Miss Marvel. So again, kind of goes back to everything spread out a little bit. It has some interesting things. We kind of have, again, a little circle in the middle around this Ferris wheel. Not the Ferris wheel, the merry-go-round. Ferris wheel is right here. But we only have 1 triple spot in this one, which I said is interesting because it's the Miss Marvel set, and she needs multiple spaces. But yeah, orange here connects to pretty much all the other colors to some extent. Purple's sort of off by itself over here a little bit in the corner. Blue's pretty connected. Yellow, the boardwalk up here, you know, get around through there. Once you get up in there, you can cross over, but it has its spots that come out. Same thing at the park down here. If you get on this side, you have multiple enough areas to get through every other space. It's not really blocked off too much. The other's a little kind of congested separate zone up here in this tiny corner, though. But it's also neat, though, because even though it does extend all the way down into here for green. Like, this green extends up into there, even into here. So everything is really sort of like connected. Blue is kind of off by itself. Purple is a little bit, but the rest of these are all still kind of connected pretty well. So you can attack from here. You can attack all the way over to here, right? Yellow, you can attack, these areas from this green area. You can attack down here. These you can attack up here. It's really, blue is kind of like you're attacking blue. Purple, you're attacking purple. Yeah, very, very interesting little board there. Plus also, like, you have 3 of the tokens kind of near each other. And then last we have Brains and Brawn, which is the Sanctum Sanctorum, which we have some DBZs stuck to it. So Doctor Strange's house. So yeah. And then this one, yeah, just kind of like more of the same-ish. Again, we have 3 triple spots. You have a few of those in there. The red kind of takes up this entire half of the board, where the blue takes up this one. Again, a little bit more asymmetrically, because you have a triple, you have double, 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 double right there. So you kind of have, a little bit of a symmetricalness there. The same on this side. You have 2 full ones, 2 symmetrical. It's kind of combined these 2. This is a very interesting spot because it's these 4 right here have no single. The brown has no single spot by itself. It mixes with all the other ones. There's really no place on the board, though, where you can kind of hide and not be near something else. Because if you're in this dark brown area, you have this red and this area here these 3 areas here that can attack. If you're in purple, you can attack this way you can attack that way. You have this one. Nothing really has a super safe spot where there's only like one thing connecting it. It's all very open area where you can hit anyone from everywhere. There's movement, spaces everywhere. We have little crosses in there. This one. There's not, like, the only ones that are, there's nothing that's off one spot by itself. So if we look at some of these other boards, we do have some of these that aren't necessarily one by themselves, but they're in the corners, right? Like, you have to come down here to get into there. Now we kind of have that with this, I guess. But again, it's connected to another area. Connected to an area. Connected to an area. Whereas we do have some like this that are completely by themselves. Up in the top corner, we have that. Even if we jump back to, like, Hell's Kitchen, if you look at the same thing there, we got some spots up here that are, like, again, completely disconnected from the other groups. So you have to go all the way around. You can't just run through. So yeah, that's kind of the difference you're getting in the boards. So if you're kind of curious what the differences are, some are more open. You're going to have a lot more attacking everybody from here to there. You have some spaces where you have more spaces to kind of maneuver around and escape. Some with multiple, like, zones where you can attack in multiple spaces, which is great for ranged characters. So, like, again, a ranged character can stand here, can attack, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 spaces, versus, some of them. And then you have people like, yeah, so it just gives you some extra options. Plus, if you can only attack along the lines, that gives someone like this can give Bullseye, who can attack 5 spaces away, or Kamala, who can attack up to 2 extra spaces away. Gives them a lot more versatility because they have that. If you have a movement character, they have a bunch more options. Whereas, like, we jump back into something like their helicarrier here, like, you can literally get up into here. There's nothing connected to this zone up here. So if you're up in this zone, no one's going to be able to touch you. But if you can shoot out, you can shoot from here, you can shoot out into these other zones. Or attack 2 spaces away. Definitely could be very helpful. Yeah, so some interesting stuff in there as well. Kind of get into this middle zone is where you can attack when they have kind of some of the triple spaces near each other. This one, again, has no triple spaces, has lots of asymmetrical. So, some very interesting stuff. Now, one thing that'll be interesting to see is I do not own any of the other regular Unmatched stuff. I only own, as of right now, I only own Tales to Amaze, which has a different board completely because it's, I should actually grab that, but it's a big 4-player board, so I think it's going to be very different because it's a larger board for 4 people. But it'd be interesting. I'm not going to grab it because it's a 4-player board. It's going to have a different aesthetic for this because it has a lot bigger area. But it'd be interesting to grab another board for like meant for smaller areas when I get some of them. Maybe compare to see how some of the other things do. Or do they make Marvel kind of this way than they made, like this game this way, this one this way. Like, are the Witcher boards, I think, have new mechanics in them, like portals and stuff like that. We'll definitely have to see. But that's what we have for Marvel Unmatched. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And again, the last thing I'll say is I did not go over Deadpool because 1, I don't own him. 2, because he's super expensive. So if you can find him, good luck. I'm not spending $400 on one character and a deck of cards. He does not come with any battle items. He does not come with a map. He just comes with his own deck of cards and his miniature. Sorry, I'm not going to. Hopefully they come out with some more Marvel or some other stuff. I'm super excited for TMNT coming out soon. See you guys later. Bye.